So I'm talking today about putting your horse on the aids. Can be on the bit, in a round outline, in the bridle. There's some few ways of describing that, but basically I think we know what we mean here. And I'm standing in front of this fantastic picture. These are the horses outside St. Mark's in Venice. And look how beautifully their necks are up, beautifully arched. Nose is well in front of the vertical. Okay, they haven't got a bridle, but I think originally they were pulling a chariot, hence the little bits of harness. Beautifully elevated front end, nice high, regal, noble steps. And you look at that and you think, how would it be to sit on those horses? You'd feel like a king, wouldn't you? And that's what it should feel like when you really put a horse on the aids, a little more collected frame. So, when I was growing up and having lessons in pony club and then later on in various schools, the instructors would love to show me how to put the horse on the aid, and they'd use this whip as a demonstration model. Now I've added a little head here, this little Indian head here. So this is the horse's head here on my left hand, and this is his back end, shall we say. Now remember, this is just a whip, not a real horse here. So if I just have a neutral, like a sort of flat outline, you can see the head hangs very freely here. I've got a sort of little bit of a link here, and it just hangs nice and freely. And if I lift the whip up, it still hangs nice and freely here, has a little bit of movement. So this represents, if you like, the poll, the freedom of the poll of the horse, the top of the horse's head. So then the demonstration would be very simple. It would say, here's the front end of the horse, here's the back end of the horse where the handle of the whip is, and if you hold this bit here as if you're keeping the pole where it is, and if you just push a little bit from behind, up comes the neck, you have this nice round outline. So it's the push from behind. If you do nothing with the front end, it pretty much stays either on or maybe a little in front of the vertical. And if you take the neck a little bit higher here and have the same thing, if you push from behind, you have that lovely smooth arch in the neck. And if the horse's head is a little bit down, you push again, you still get the nice arch in the horse's neck, and the nose stays on or in front of the vertical. It's nice and free. The head should hang off that top joint here. It shouldn't be fixed in any way. So this would be a demonstration of how your horse, if you push from behind and are very neutral in the hands, the neck will round nicely, and also the back. Now if you start with the horse slightly hollow in his back, and we're only doing a tiny bit here, I hope you can see this on my whip, I'll just do it here against the wall here. So just a tiny bit hollow, not much. Now if you push, you're going to make the horse more hollow. And that doesn't matter whether his head is down or up. If he's got his nose on the floor, but he's got a saggy back, you push, he's just going to get more hollow in his neck and back. And again, if his head is right up here, but he's a little bit hollow, you push, you make him more hollow. So it's a very useful little demonstration, and one that was very, very commonly used. And I think it seems to have gone out of fashion, sadly. So then I thought, well, how about if I attach some reins? So here is one I made earlier. As you can see, this is a big horse. So this bit here is as if it's his head. Here are my reins attached to his nose, the bit. Here's the rest of his neck, and this end is the hind end. So the same thing applies. I have a very neutral rein here. This has got, obviously, just because it's homemade, a rather flexy pole, but that's not a bad thing. So if I just keep the reins exactly in the same place, and I do exactly the same thing, I think of pushing from behind. As I do that, his neck will arch nicely, and he'll come a little bit more head vertical, a little more on the aids. Okay? So it's the same idea. I'm pushing, and if you like, I'm pushing his mane towards his ears. I'm pushing that. And if I just keep a very gentle contact, he will just come a little bit rounder. So the same is if his head is down here, and see his head hangs quite freely here. And again, I keep a very gentle feel on the reins, and I just push a little bit. His head a little more vertical. And if I let it out a bit, he comes a little more in front of the vertical. And then if I bring him up, So this would be a horse a little bit stiff in the poll, shall we say. His nose is well in front of the vertical, not unlike maybe this horse here or this, okay? But again, just feeling that rein just a tiny bit, but really providing some energy from the back end. I push the horse, more energy into the front. I just receive. Notice my hand is not doing anything except sitting there. I just receive that energy, and your horse will come into a nice rounded outline. Very, very little pressure on the reins. Now, what seems to be the commonest practice now is that there's no talk at all of anything coming from the back end. It's all about fiddling the front end down. Say back in the day, that would have been your worst possible sin, fiddling with the reins to get the head down. So if you're not careful, you start using the reins, manipulating the front end, and you'll see that it doesn't really matter where the neck is. If the neck is down here, and I start with here, you see I pull the nose in, and what happens is I get an exaggerated bend at the top end of the whip, i.e. a couple of vertebrae back from his poll. And if he's up here, and I think, oh, well, he's really above the bit now, so I'm going to take a bit more of a hold here, and I really pull his nose in. Yeah, his nose comes in, but you don't get that nice curve of the neck. You just get a kink at the top. And if I keep pulling that even more, then you can see you get a real broken neck. And if we go down, you hear about deep and round. So he's down here, I just pull on the reins, deep and round, pull his head down, pull him down here, and you can see what a disastrous effect that would be. And this is only a demonstration, but I think it's a very clear demonstration of this is what not to do. Don't start with the rein, leave the reins very light, and ask the horse to go forward into that contact. This is wrong, this is correct. Push him forward, and the hand stays neutral. Anything, it doesn't really matter. A tiny little bit of backward pull is already too much. You can see that on the video. That tiny little bit of a backward pull. So I'm sort of pushing from behind, but I'm also saying don't go anywhere. And immediately you're going to be getting that break up behind his ears and his nose coming behind the vertical. And as you know, when you get higher up the scale and more collected, how many times is the judge saying, nose a little bit behind the vertical, a little bit overbent, a little bit deep, try and keep the poll up, try and keep the nose forward. Well, if you start as a 4-year-old like this, you really haven't got a hope in hell once the horse gets up into a more collected, more advanced phase. Okay, that's my on the aids talk.